About 2 weeks ago, I released a video like this one in which I highlighted 3 Blue Ocean Spec books. Within 24 hours of that video being released, one of the 3 books found its way into Key Collector app. Now, mind you, before that video was released, none of the books were actually in Key Collector, but 24 hours later, one of them popped in. And this could be a coincidence, right? In all honesty, it could be a coincidence, or we could actually be on to something. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve, you definitely want to pay attention to the 3 books that we are going to highlight in this video, because 24 hours from now, potentially one of these books could actually be on everyone's radar. Stay tuned. Regie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. As I mentioned in that brief intro, we are going to identify 3 Blue Ocean Spec books. Books that might already be in your collection or could be found at your local LCS for a couple of dollars. Books that are also not found in Key Collector app. I will tell you for a fact that I am a huge fan of this app. I literally use it every single day, but part of the fun for us in putting together this video is to try to identify books that are not in Key Collector app and trying to construct a rationale for why someone should care about these books. The truth of the matter is that we do not know whether these books are going to go up in value or not. We really don't know. So we are certainly not saying go out and spend crazy amounts of money, but we are saying, hey, here's a cool book that popped into our head. We did a little research. We can construct an argument for it. And maybe, just maybe, you have these books in your long boxes already or could pick them up for a couple of dollars should you choose to do that. We are not saying to go out and do it, but it is fun to try to do a video of this sort because there is a lot of excitement out there in the comic book community about just about everything. So this is how we are choosing to have a little bit of fun. So in the spirit of trying to continue to do something that seems to have been well received the last time that we did a video of this sort, we decided to take a shot on goal. And in this video, we are going to look at 3 books that are not found in Key Collector app and provide you with a little bit of rationale for why these books are on our radar. Before I get to the books, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the sponsor of this video, 9panel.com. This is a really user-friendly website that will allow you to very quickly find books of interest, whether they be raw or graded, and then to securely complete a purchase of those comics. And a lot of the inventory actually comes from LCSs all across the country, as well as some private sellers as well. I have a feeling that if you click on the link in the description of this video and head over to the website, you are not going to be disappointed. And maybe, just maybe, some of the books that I talk about in this video could be found on that website. With that said, let's get to the books. The very first book that I want to highlight is Marvel Premiere issue number 55, published by Marvel Comics in 1980. What's interesting about this title is that in many respects, it was a testing ground for Marvel Comics because it afforded them an opportunity to test out different characters and different teams and to figure out what might actually resonate with fans. And depending upon how things went, some characters, some teams went on to have their own books. This is actually where we were first introduced to Iron Fist. Now, what makes issue number 55 important is that it is the first solo story featuring Wonderman, who was first introduced in Avengers issue number 9. Again, it's a whole testing ground. And Wonderman actually went on to have several different volumes featuring him. He went on to be featured on several different teams, but the first solo story was issue number 55. I should also point out here that he had a one-shot that was released in 1986 featuring an amazing cover from Bill Sienkiewicz. Now what's interesting is that neither of these books, neither the one-shot nor Marvel Premiere issue number 55, are found in Key Collector app, so you have a little bit of a twofer with this one. The other thing that's really important about this book is the fact that a lot of folks are speculating that we might actually get a West Coast Avengers team appearance in a streaming platform of some type. And if you listen to the rumors and if you pay attention, what is essentially happening is that we have some characters that have already been introduced in some streaming shows. We have others that are going to be introduced, all of which have actually been part of the West Coast Avengers at some point in time. And we are specifically talking about characters like the Colorless Vision, Scarlet Witch, Moon Knight, Hawkeye, War Machine, and also, you guessed it, Wonderman has also been part of the team. The other thing that I should mention here is that in the WandaVision show, there were some teasers and some Easter eggs regarding a character known as the Grim Reaper, who is also the brother of Wonderman. And so again, there is this connection that could be established between some things that we've already seen and some things that are coming and some things that have been teased, and we just might get some Wonderman. And if you think back to all of the excitement that was around the WandaVision show, a lot of people believed that he was going to be introduced in that series. It didn't happen, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen at some point in the future. While we're talking about teases, James Gunn also teased us a little bit with some of the things that he put out there related to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And if you recall, we actually saw some teasers associated with Wonderman, where we had a fan favorite by the name of Nathan Fillion that depicted Wonderman. And even though he never actually appeared in the movie, he's actually gone on, Nathan that is, to portray Wonderman in the MODOK streaming series. So again, the teases continue and they are kind of alluding to the fact that maybe we will get some Wonderman. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to specifically highlight this book in this video. If you take a moment and think about it, when a character becomes hot, the very first thing that people start to try to buy up are that character's first appearances. If that first appearance is out of reach for most people, folks will then turn their attention to some alternatives. Alternatives include things like origin stories, first cover appearances, first solo features, as well as the first title series. Those are the things that become collectible when that first appearance is out of reach. And again, that is why we are talking about Marvel Premiere issue number 55 as well as the one-shot. Should Wonderman appear in the MCU in some form or fashion, these could be some good books to actually have in your collection. And maybe you already have them in your collection. So again, we kind of want to highlight them for you. When you dig into the data, the highest recorded sale for this first solo story was only $200 for a CGC 9.8. The last raw copy of this comic sold for just $6. Taking it a step further, when you look at the 1986 Wonderman issue number 1, the one-shot, it was even cheaper. The last recorded sale for this book was $4, and the last graded sale of a CGC 9.6 in 2019 sold for only $13. The bar is really low for this book, and I can tell you for a fact that I have a couple of copies of at least the one-shot from 1986 in the collection. The Marvel Premiere, I'm not certain about that one. I don't think so, but again, some of you out there may already have these books in your collection. The second book that I want to highlight is The Hobbit, published by Eclipse Comics in 1989. This book is the first comic adaptation of this classic fantasy universe in American comics. It also includes the first appearance of numerous characters that many folks love, including the wizard Gandalf as well as Bilbo Baggins. Now, if you're into international comics, you may want to check out the British anthology series entitled Princess and the Girl. This anthology was actually published in 1964. In the early 2000s, Peter Jackson adopted a now classic movie series based on The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. When these movies were released, the connection between movies and comic book values was nowhere near as strong as it is right now. Now, this is important not because we're about to get a movie, but because we are going to get a series, an Amazon Prime series that is actually going to be a prequel to the Peter Jackson series. Now, this series has been teased for a long time, but what we are hearing and seeing is that they are actually in production as we speak. And this series is set to be released in September of 2022. And there is the possibility that some of the characters that are featured in Hobbit issue number 1 could appear in this new streaming show that is coming out, which I hear they are spending big dollars on. And if successful, maybe there will be an impact on the value of the Hobbit series. And I do believe it is issues 1 through 3, so potentially you want to be on the lookout for those if you don't already have them in your collection. The original cover price for this comic was a little pricey. In 1989, it was $4.95. The current raw FMV for this book, Hobbit issue number 1, is $21. However, the last recorded sale for this book was $43. So it appears that maybe some savvy collectors are already on the lookout for this book and are driving the prices up, but that doesn't mean that there are not some opportunities out there. Taking it a step further, when you dig into the data, what you see is that the highest price realized for a CGC 9.8 of this book purchased in October of 2020 was only $62. Right now, as we mentioned, this book is not on the main radar. It's not on the main radar because it is not in Key Collector app, but that could change in about 24 hours. The last and final book that we're going to talk about is an interesting one. And it's interesting because it actually ties to a point that I made earlier in this video about the fact that when a character's first appearance becomes too expensive and gets out of reach for folks, they start to look for alternatives. And so those alternatives are things like origin stories and first cover, but it's also things like a character's first titled series. And the book that we're going to talk about right now is Storm issue number 1. And this book was released by Marvel Comics in 1996. Now, why is this relevant? It's relevant because Storm's first appearance was in Giant Size X-Men number 1, a book that is out of reach for a lot of people. And technically, the value right now is kind of fluctuating. I know somebody that actually just picked up a copy for a reasonable price versus what it has been over the last couple of months. But for a lot of people, this book in high grade is out of reach. And for that reason, we wanted to highlight Storm Volume 1, Issue number 1. This wonderful foil comic from the 90s is a really awesome one. And the reason that Giant Size X-Men is getting out of reach for a lot of people is because people are excited about the mutants coming to the MCU. And Storm specifically has appeared in lots of movies. She's been depicted by Halle Berry. But there is nothing like a character appearing in the MCU to drive values up. And so theoretically, Giant Size X-Men could go up in value, which means that folks might be looking for some alternatives, and this wonderful foil cover could be just that. When you dig into the data, what you see is the current FMV for Storm's solo title is still extremely affordable. Raw copies have an FMV of under $4, and the highest price paid for a CGC 9.6 was in September of 2020 for only $90. When we talk about FMV in this video, we are specifically talking about values pulled from Cover Price. That is a pricing service that has values for both raw and graded comics. So instead of bouncing between multiple references, we decided to pull them from just one. One of the other things that I want to do is to encourage you to take the time to comment on this video. Maybe there is a book that you think has more potential than the others. Maybe there's a book on the list that you don't think should be on the list. We definitely want to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment behind, a substantive comment. The other reason for that is we are going to be giving away a set of all 3 comics that were actually shown in our first Blue Ocean Spec video a couple of weeks ago. Doug has graciously volunteered all 3 books, and we are going to give it away to one lucky subscriber in North America. So if you're in the US or in Canada, you are eligible. So make sure you leave a comment behind, because we are randomly going to be picking a person from those comments, bundling those comics up and sending them out to a lucky winner. With that said, we're going to wrap this video up, but I also want to encourage you to click on the link and head over to 9panel.com. Again, wonderful resource that is available to you, and maybe some of the books that I spoke about in this video are available on the website should you choose to pick them up. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.